Hi, I'm Andras Fekete, your host for East Brunswick Television. I'm here today with Angus, Kress, Gillespie, and Michael Aaron Rockland. They are the authors of a book called Looking for America on the New Jersey Turnpike. This book originally came out in 1989 in a hardback edition. To everyone's surprise, it sold out rather quickly. It then was published in a paperback edition, which also sold out quickly. Then a second paperback edition was published. Guess what? It too sold out. Nothing like this had ever happened before at Rutgers Press, so they decided to bring out a second edition with a new introduction, which has just been released. This introduction brings us up to date on everything that has happened with the Turnpike over the last 35 years. I'm eager to find out all about it, so it's my pleasure to welcome these two authors to our studio today. So, how'd you first get the idea for this book? This is for you.
I was basically from Virginia, and when I was lucky enough to get a job at Rutgers University in New Brunswick, otherwise known as Exit 9, I was kind of just blown away by the thing. Here's a divided highway with many lanes and restricted access, only a few entrances and exits, and I was just amazed by it. And my New Jersey friends, they just took it for granted. But because I was from out of state, I was awestruck by it. And I thought, here's a possibility for a book.
Well, Angus invited me to do the book with him. I was going through a crisis on my first novel. And in a sense, I signed up for therapeutic reasons to work on a nonfiction book. The fact that it became such a success and the novel was immensely improved by working on a nonfiction book. I can't explain this, but this is the way I've written a number of books now. And so while working on the Turnpike book, with Angus, I got all my ideas for making the novel really work, and it won a big prize. And so they both won. I mean, they both were immensely celebrated books. So ever since then, I've had a tendency to work on two books at the same time.
Okay, did you have different writing styles, Angus, and yourself?
Well, I think I'm more informal. I think Angus is more formal. I think that Angus is a terrific researcher, and I'm more of a storyteller. Both of our skills and talents were melded together. It was hard to do, but I think we did. I think.
What inspired the title for the book? It's an interesting.
Well, we were riding along in my car at one point, and Paul Simon's song "America" came on. And the last line goes, "Counting the cars on the New Jersey Turnpike, they all came to look for America." And I went, boom, what a title, Looking for America on the New Jersey Turnpike. It also had something to do with our both being professors of American studies, and what you do in American studies, you're looking for America all the time. And so, in a way, this influenced some of our writing to use the Turnpike as emblematic of the United States, of our country, good and bad, but as emblematic, not just a road, but a road that tells America's story.
How was it received? How was the book received when it appeared in 1989?
Well, that blew us away, that it was immensely well received. New York Times Book Review had a great review. Tell you the truth, if you ask me, would you like to read a book on the Jersey Turnpike? I'd probably say, I don't think so. But but that's not what happened. It became quite a bestseller among university books, and people loved it.
It had name recognition. That helped. Yeah.
Okay. Well, here's another one for you, Angus. What led to the merger of the New Jersey Turnpike, the Garden State Parkway, back in, I guess, 2003 under Governor McGreevey?
Very interesting question. What happened was the Garden State Parkway had less traffic, it had less revenue, and they had a lot of need for repairing and fixing up things like bridges. Meanwhile, the Turnpike had lots of revenue, so it was kind of common sense. New Jersey Turnpike had the money, Garden State Parkway had the need, and so the governor put them together.
Let's see, what are some of the cultural differences between the two highway authorities? You started getting into that already.
Yeah, I could go on forever, but basically, the Garden State Parkway is a parkway. It's lovely. It has trees and grass and flowers, and it has gradual curves left and right. Whereas the Turnpike, it's just more straightforward, getting from point A to point B, a very straight road, very few curves, right through the industrial heartland. They couldn't be more different in terms of atmosphere. One is industrial, one is park-like.
Okay. And there are some other differences. One of them I'm asking is about the management problems. And what about the differences in working hours between the two authorities?
It made sense economically to bring those two together, but there were a lot of what we would now see as rather minor cultural differences. For example, the paychecks. On the New Jersey Turnpike, you would get paid every Friday. On the Garden State Parkway, you would get paid every other Tuesday. Now that sounds trivial, but if you're managing your household budget, you're used to doing it your way, and this was a clash. What happened in the end was, in that particular case, the Garden State Parkway won the argument.
Right. Okay, we talked about the payroll practices just now, and then in the long run, how were these differences resolved, these issues?
That's very interesting. The people who were most annoyed by the merger were the senior officials of the Garden State Parkway, because they'd spent their whole life doing the Parkway way.
Yeah.
And they were most annoyed. What did they do when they were annoyed? They took early retirement. And so then this was an opening for the New Jersey Turnpike people who were now in charge to reach out kindly to the junior people at the Garden State Parkway. Treat them with respect. Treat them with decency. It was very clever. And just one example, they allowed the Garden State Parkway to keep their own logo, their own emblem on the rest areas, on their vehicles. They were working for the Turnpike, but image-wise, it looked like the same old thing. And gradually, they promoted these junior people within the hierarchy, and it worked over time.
Okay. Michael, in the early 2000s, what problems came up with the introduction of Easy Pass?
Well, obviously, this changed the Turnpike immensely. It became a very different riding experience. It also accounted for less accidents on the Turnpike. One thing that people didn't talk about a whole lot was, since you had to stop at a booth, there were a hell of a lot of collisions. A car would be coming up and bang into the car in front of it. I have some friends who came close to dying there. So Easy Pass not only meant you could save a lot of money, eventually save a lot of money. So many people you didn't have to pay who slowly retired, and then they closed booths, etc. But also, I think, was safer.
Yeah. However, there were lots of problems with the introduction of Easy Pass. It was a nightmare. What happened often was people were able to avoid paying. They were able to slip through. Whereas other people who were perfectly honest and they paid their way would get tickets. It was a nightmare. It was, and in trying to analyze it, what I think happened, the reason why it was so complicated is, think about it. If you have Easy Pass at a bridge or a tunnel, it's just one car paying one fee. But the Turnpike is unbelievably complicated because you can get on at any exit and you can get off at any exit. And this complication, it took years and years to smooth out all the problems. Of all the major changes, this was the one that was the rockiest.
Okay. Interesting.
And by the way, most people that I speak to do not know that the Garden State Parkway is supervised by the New Jersey Turnpike Authority. That it's part of it. It happened.
Because the imagery and the logos are still the way they used to be. Very clever.
All right. Well, why was it decided, Angus, to widen the turnpike between exit 9 in Middlesex County, southbound to exit 6 in Burlington County back in 2004?
This is a very good question. This was one of the major changes that happened since 1989. If you were headed south on the turnpike and you're going from exit 9 southwards towards exit 6, it's about a 20-mile gap. Basically, you had 2 truck lanes and 3 car lanes, and then all of a sudden they have to merge to just 3 lanes. What used to be 5 lanes is now 3 lanes. And I have family in Richmond, Virginia, and I live in New Brunswick. I experienced it personally. It was a nightmare. It was just a sudden congestion. And so it was very important to get this thing widened. And it was not cheap.
And it took 10 years.
Yeah, it took a long time.
Yeah.
Angus, what's the biggest public relations issue with the widening? You started getting into that a little bit.
Yeah, I think there were lots of issues, but I think the most sensitive one was you're widening the turnpike. What if there are houses, individual residences adjacent to the existing turnpike? You have to condemn the property. And what's tricky, I think, is the turnpike bent over backwards to try to offer a fair price to the homeowners who were in the way. I think nobody said that the turnpike was trying to be on the cheap. They gave a fair price, but nonetheless, think about it. If it's your house and you've been living there for years and years, you don't want to move. It's painful, and that was a very sensitive issue, but it had to be dealt with.
One was public relations, the other one, were there other sensitive issues?
The other problem was when you have a very wide multi-lane turnpike, these vehicles create noise. And so the houses on either side, they complain about the noise. And so the turnpike wanted to be fair, and so they had these scientific sound measuring machines. And so what John Keller, who was director of the project, decided, if somebody has a legitimate complaint about the noise, we will build a noise barrier. However, building noise barriers is very expensive. And so just because somebody wants one doesn't mean that they need one. And so balancing want and need was very tricky. In the end, not everybody who wanted it got it, but those who really needed it got it. And there were 4 miles of very expensive noise barriers.
Why are some widening projects very popular and some are controversial?
Especially now.
The one from exit 9 to exit 6 was almost universally welcomed. Very few people complained. However, there is a proposal out there, the Hudson County extension, which we would think of exit 14A, B, and C, leading to the Holland Tunnel. That's under consideration for widening. Well, okay, it's about 8 miles long. It would cost about $10 billion. At first, it kind of makes sense, but then, okay, you widen the road towards the Holland Tunnel, but if you don't widen the tunnel, what's going to happen? You're going to end up with congestion anyway. So I would say this is the most controversial one that's out there.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, Michael, what event of October 2012 led the Turnpike Authority to take a fresh look at its service areas?
Well, there was a hurricane, and when it happened, there was a little creek running behind the Grover Cleveland rest area that nobody ever paid much attention to, but this little creek became a torrent of water and pretty well destroyed the whole rest area. Ironically, an architect built a very attractive rest area to replace it, more attractive than the other, and that in many ways encouraged the replacement of rest areas up and down the Turnpike. So this disaster with the river actually, I think, in the long run, is giving us a more attractive turnpike. And by the way, we might mention that if the Garden State is indeed part of the turnpike, is in a sense, or under its authority, the Garden State had never named its rest areas. And now they're being named after contemporary Americans for the most part, whereas the Turnpike rest areas are named after historic figures. So, and I think this may have had something to do with Angus and myself and our writing about this, because we felt very strongly that the Turnpike, Garden State, whatever, had an educational responsibility to have a mini museum on the person on it. And we've, and again, I don't know if it was our pushing or would not, but it's delightful to see how the rest areas are now not only being rebuilt, but they're also really paying attention to the honoree, which we felt very strongly about.
Angus, what are some of your readers' suggestions that the Turnpike should do at the service areas? What are some of the things that have been suggested?
I think Michael and I have heard this many times from readers who write to us by email us, is we're the Garden State. So why don't we have like vegetable sales or open market, farmers markets at these rest areas? And indeed, it's done routinely at the New York Thruway.
And the Mass Pike.
And yet we are the Garden State. And there's plenty of land in most of these places, and it wouldn't take away the business of selling the gas or selling the food. It just seems to make a whole lot of sense, and we've written about it, but so far nothing has really happened.
I guess keep trying.
But
right?
we'll keep pushing on that one.
There you go. Okay, Michael, do you have balanced negative and positive comments about the Turnpike on the back? How do you balance negative and the positive aspects of the Turnpike?
Well, on the negative side, now we're talking just about the Turnpike, not the Garden State. On the negative side, absolutely no attention was paid to aesthetics. Zero. No trees, no grass, no nothing. Where they wanted to, they sometimes made fake grass, but it was built really with the spirit, and by some of the very same people who during World War II were responsible for putting up a bridge in 10 minutes that tanks could go across a river that the Nazis had already destroyed. Right. The Nazis had already destroyed the other bridge. So that, I think, is important. That aesthetics were not important to to the Turnpike, and I think they made a terrible mistake. But it is also the issue of the quality of air, you know, which I don't think has been addressed properly. We're worried about the future of this planet. The Turnpike's got something to do with it, and I don't hear them paying enough attention to that. I know the mayor of Jersey City, for example, he's totally opposed to that widening. On the main, and his main reason is the air in Jersey City is bad enough, and you're about to triple it, triple its bad aspects. That's something we got to think about, people's health.
Yeah, that's a good summary. Yeah.
Okay. That's that's an important question, I suppose, among the ones public health and our quality of life. Now, here's a good one. How did the New Jersey Turnpike serve as an inspiration for the songs of Bruce Springsteen?
Oh, well, yeah. Well, first, yeah, several of his songs deal with Chuck Berry as well, by the way, several of his songs as well. I think that's why people like Bruce so much. One of the reasons, anyway, his music is great, but it's also that he doesn't cover up New Jersey's defects. He is honest about them, and it's that very honesty, I think, which is very appealing. He gives us the state as it is.
Why do you suppose New Jersey Turnpike was such a prominent theme or topic of the Sopranos series?
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, that's you know, I've met people all over the world who love New Jersey, who have never been here. Why do they love New Jersey? They love Bruce Springsteen, but they love the Sopranos. And they think that New Jersey must be the most interesting and greatest place on the planet. And I don't try to disabuse them of that. And in some ways it is that. In some ways it has remarkable features.
Yeah, the opening shows him coming out of the Lincoln Tunnel. And it's all very familiar. And a few minutes later we see the New York skyline in the distance.
Michael, tell us about your experience with two BBC reporters who flew to Newark from London overnight just to interview you about the New Jersey Turnpike.
Oh, that's great. I've never understood. It may be that they were trying to call Angus and he wasn't in his office, and I happened to be in my office. So I don't know why they chose me. But they said, is this Michael Rockland? I said, yes. We want to interview you. And I said, well, I got a class in 10 minutes. Can you do it in a couple of minutes? No, we want to come over and interview you. You want to come over and interview? Yeah. Are you by chance free next Tuesday? Yeah, Tuesday's my one day I don't have classes. Would you pick us up at Newark Airport on an overnight flight from London at 8 in the morning? I said, sure, okay. And I had all kind of ideas of lovely places I wanted to show them in New Jersey. I particularly wanted to take them over to the Delaware, and which is, to me, the prettiest area of New Jersey. And they got off the plane, and I said, so you wanted me to tell you where I'd like to take you? And they said, no, we know where we want to go. I said, where do you want to go? We want to get on the Turnpike and ride up and down the Turnpike. I said, okay, you want to go? Yes, we want to go all the way down to the end of it. We stopped for coffee, we had lunch somewhere, and we turned around and went all the way back to Newark Airport. And I thought, my response, and all this while, this fellow Rupert is in the back seat. And he loves the Turnpike. I can't say I love the Turnpike. He loves the Turnpike. And he tells me, I don't know if this is true, everybody in London loves the New Jersey Turnpike. Now, why would people in London even hear about or care about And he said, yeah, New Jersey is the grooviest place on the planet. You got the Sopranos and Bruce Springsteen, but you got the Turnpike, the world's biggest road. You guys are really something. And he was in love with the Turnpike and in love with New Jersey. The funniest part of the story is that we go down to the end of New Jersey, turn around, we get back to the airport, and he said, you know, it's only 1 o'clock. Would you mind doing that again? I said, you want to drive all the way down there? And, yeah, would you mind? Because our plane isn't until 8 o'clock at night. And there's so many other things I want to talk to you about the Turnpike and about New Jersey, and I have a great passion for New Jersey. Would you mind doing it? So I drove well over 400 miles down back that day with these guys, and that's what they were passionate about.
That's quite a story.
That's a good one.
Thank you.
I'm going to make a question up, though. This is just, you guys have an incredible amount of pride in our state and Garden State. And one of the things that I kind of wonder about is, have you ever, like, people who are driving through the Turnpike, when they start hitting the industrial areas, when you see the refineries, it used to be the landfills, and you start approaching New York City. Just as a little kid, I used to remember it's a sense of power. It's like, what a place. I used to love to look out the window to see all this stuff that, you know, it's industry, rawest form, you know. I'm wondering if that's an aspect of this that you guys think about, talk about, or hear about, or have any views on that whole experience of that area. That's sort of like almost a tourism.
Yeah. Well, I think most New Jerseyans and most Americans who are passing through think that's the ugliest place on the planet. However, these Brits, again, that was their favorite part of the Turnpike that day. They loved it. I mean, and when you think of it, you've got the airport, you've got the Turnpike, you've got the train yards, and you've got the port, all in a row. I don't know if there's a place on the planet which has so much industrial stuff going. And also the plants for making chemicals and oils and gasoline and everything. I don't know if there's another place on the planet which is quite the equal of that area. And most people, unfortunately, people who are not New Jerseyans and who are not foreigners, perhaps, who are passing through, see that and think, God, New Jersey's ugly. But there are some people who absolutely love it.
Just for fun, I was one time interviewing a spokesperson for the New Jersey Turnpike, and I was taking the position that this is an ugly stretch through this industrial area, and his rebuttal was, would you prefer that we put it through beautiful forested area? I thought that was a good rebuttal.
Yeah, yeah. And also that the Turnpike insists that it's responsible for the cleanliness of the Turnpike itself. They're not responsible for what's just off the Turnpike.
Yeah. Again, when I'm confronting the spokesperson, his response to all this is, the Turnpike is immaculate because they clean it up constantly. Yeah, there's no trash.
Right. Well, you guys are, again, you got an incredible love for New Jersey, and it really shows.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah. In doing this new edition of the book, so many things happened from '89 until now. It was kind of fun to be back in that world that we had been so much together, and now what are we going to do to bring it up to date? And so,
well, congratulations.
Yeah, it was quite a job deciding what to do and how to do it.